Well, hey everyone, so excited you're joining us for another week of Students Groups. My name is Greg Grant. I'm the student pastor over at the Edgewood campus, and I have my friend Blake. He's an intern with us this fall. Blake, where you at, bro?
Oh, hey, I'm over here. Sorry about that, Greg.
What? Hold on, bro. What's going on with your getup? What you wearing, bro?
So as you know, we're continuing on in our series Royal, so I figured I'd look the part.
Okay, all right. I'll let that slide. But if you're gonna wear the getup, you gotta tell us what's going on. What are we talking about this week?
So my good friend Adam Prophet from way down in Yeehaw land, Tennessee, is going to be teaching us about what it looks like to live in a royal community.
All right. It's what it looks like to be in a royal community. We have another installment in our series Royals. Let's get excited and let's get ready to dive in.
Hey guys, I'm Adam, and I'm so excited to be with you today. We're in this series right now that we're calling Royals. And in this series, we aren't talking about the latest drama in the English royal family, but rather what God says about God's children, all those who've made the decision to become part of God's family. Because when we make a decision to follow Jesus, we're welcomed into a new family with a new inheritance and a new father, and that father is God. Like Big G God, like the one who spoke everything into existence. And Sean opened this conversation last week by reminding us of what God says about us when we become God's children. He reminded us that we become royalty. We're welcomed into God's family, and that family comes with an awesome inheritance. Suddenly, there's more to who we are than meets the eye. There's more to who we are than the way the world around us defines us. There's more. And I think we feel that more. We're hungry for more, and we spend a lot of time and energy looking for that more. And there's more because our Father God is the King of all creation. And our God didn't set us apart for an average mundane existence. Our God set us apart for royalty. God intended for us to rule, and that's what we're talking about in this series. When we become God's children, we become royalty. And that's awesome. We become God's pride and joy. The same God, the God who created amazing things like Mount Everest and tacos, welcomes us into God's family, and in so doing makes us royalty. And that's awesome news. And it's also news that I forget all the time. I forget it often because I don't feel like royalty most of the time. I mean, I don't know about you, but I've been following Jesus for a little while now, and I don't wake up most days feeling like royalty. I mean, yeah, some days the fit is just right and things seem to go my way and I feel it a little bit then, but most days I don't feel like royalty. And on the days where I don't feel like royalty, it's difficult for this truth to sink in and shape the way I think about myself and the world around me. On those days, that fact that we're royalty, God's children designed to rule over all creation, is lost on me. And I bet you have days like that too. And I wonder, why is that? Why is it so easy for this powerful truth to get lost on us? Why don't more of us walk around excited, energized, and transformed by the fact that we're royalty? Why doesn't this new family, this new inheritance, and this royalness change everything the moment we decide to follow Jesus? I mean, we get glimpses of this royal life sometimes, right? And those glimpses feel awesome, but why don't those moments last? I mean, think about it. If we were to find out tomorrow that we were a long-lost member of a royal family, everything would change. Overnight, the way we experience the world would be radically flipped upside down. We would have a new inheritance. We would interact with the people around us differently. Our lives would be completely transformed. So why doesn't this happen for us when we become part of God's family? Well, I think I have an idea as to why my royal status gets lost on me and why I think it gets lost on a lot of us. I think there's a key practice to living as royals that we've got to embrace before we can fully understand what it means to live as God's children and experience the royal life that God has for us. See, God had something in mind for God's royal family that looks quite a bit different than the royalty we think of today. We see royalty today and we think of an exclusive elite club like we see in Downton Abbey, or the insane amount of attention that Harry, formerly known as Prince Harry, and Meghan get. We usually think of extravagance, exclusivity, attention, and power when we think of royalty. We also think about modern day royalty like Elon Musk, Jeff Bezos, or any high-profile actor or athlete. But those weren't the kinds of things God had in mind when God created us to rule. When God talks about God's family and their royalty, meaning their set-apartness, God always uses language of community. Royalty in God's plans is almost always plural. It's not about the elite few that just happen to be born into the right family or strike it lucky. God's people are a nation of royals. And we see this all throughout the Bible. Almost every time people are set apart for God's plans, it's plural. It's rarely about one person because in God's plans, royals share life together. In the first book of the Bible, Genesis, God tells a man named Abram to leave everything he knew behind and go to a new place. God had some big plans for Abram and his family. If we read through this passage quickly, it can be easy to miss. But when we take a closer look at the story, we get a better idea of what God had in mind. Let's take a look at what God says to Abram. The Lord said to Abram, "Leave your land, your family, and your father's household for the land that I'll show you. I will make of you a great nation and will bless you. I will make your name respected and you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you. Those who curse you I will curse. All the families of earth will be blessed because of you." Now, when I typically read this story, I read it as God elevating Abram. But when God blesses Abram in this story, God blesses Abram's whole family that will eventually become a nation. God had a plan to use Abram for sure, but this plan was bigger than one guy. God's plans were for a whole people group. God's plans didn't just unfold through Abram. In fact, momentum on this plan doesn't really pick up in this story for a few more generations. God's plan was never to just make Abram royalty, but rather a whole nation of people that would bless their world by living out God's plans together in community. And the whole rest of the Old Testament is the story of Abram's descendants, the Israelites, working out their royal calling. When they move together, God does amazing things. But when they try to live like an exclusive club, they always end up getting burned. And this cycle repeats itself time and again until eventually Jesus arrives on the scene and reminds people that royals, that God's children, were designed to share life together. So there's something about Jesus that's interesting. Jesus didn't do much alone. In fact, when we read in the book of Matthew at the beginning of the New Testament, what we read is that Jesus had a short period of time where he was on his own. But when it was time to get to work, when it was time to do what God sent him to do, he immediately began sharing life with others. Let's look at this passage from Matthew together. It says, "As Jesus walked along the Galilee Sea, he saw two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, throwing fishing nets into the sea because they were fishermen. 'Come, follow me,' Jesus said, 'and I'll show you how to fish for people.' Right away, they left their nets and followed him. Continuing on, he saw another set of brothers, James, the son of Zebedee, and his brother John. They were in a boat with Zebedee, their father, repairing their nets. And Jesus called them, and immediately they left their boats and their father and followed him." And these guys, along with loads of other men and women, make up the community that Jesus surrounds himself with during his time on earth. Jesus was always surrounded by other people because he knew that an essential part of life and the family God was building was a life lived in community with others. Jesus shared life with others not because he had to. Rather, Jesus shared life with others because life lived in community with others is just better. Jesus shared life with others, and through their shared life together, they launched a movement that kept going after Jesus went back to heaven and is still going strong today. Jesus knew that royals were designed to do life together, and his followers kept that going after he went back to heaven. There's this really great story in the Bible that happens right after Jesus goes back to heaven. Jesus' closest followers preach the good news about Jesus to thousands of people who were in Jerusalem from all over the Roman Empire. And they boldly proclaim the good news about Jesus. And 3,000 people become Jesus followers. 3,000! That's crazy awesome. Could you imagine gaining 3,000 followers in a day that you didn't pay for? That's huge! What do you think they did next? If it were me, I would be like, this is crazy. We've got to capitalize on this moment. We've got to keep this wave going. We've got to take this message to other places like now. I would make sure I was capturing this moment for TikTok and for my Insta reel. But that's not what they did. Let's take a look at what this group of 3,000 does after this powerful moment. The believers devoted themselves to the apostles' teaching, to the community, and to their shared meals, and to their prayers. A sense of awe came over everyone. God performed many wonders and signs through the apostles. All the believers were united and shared everything. They would sell pieces of property and possessions and distribute the proceeds to everyone who needed them. Every day, they met together in the temple and they ate in their homes. They shared food with gladness and simplicity. They praised God and demonstrated God's goodness to everyone. The Lord added daily to the community those who were being saved. I love this passage, and as I read through this passage, I love how many times the word share shows up. When these early Jesus followers received the good news, when they became members of God's royal family, they got together and they shared everything with one another. They shared normal daily life stuff. They shared meals. They shared their actual property. They shared everything. And they shared everything because they knew that royals share life together. And as they shared life together, they got a front row seat to the amazing ways God was transforming them personally and the world globally. Now, of course, as you continue following God's story, larger gatherings and the spread of God's good news around the Roman Empire and the world would eventually happen. But it all started with community. And community has continued to be the foundation of royal life ever since. If we had more time, we could talk about group after group that God transformed and used in powerful, world-changing ways when they shared life together. God always intended for God's royal family to share life together. And I think this is our next step today. I think this is our key to the royal life. Because here's what I know. If we want to experience royal life, if we want to experience different life, meaning-filled life, then we've got to share life with other Jesus followers. And by that, I don't simply mean showing up. I mean, showing up isn't a bad thing. Something good, divine, or otherwise brought us to this moment together today. And maybe you've been showing up for as long as you can remember, and it's just part of what you do. Maybe a friend invited you and you didn't have anything better to do, so you came and you kind of liked it. Maybe you had a powerful moment at camp or CIY and you're here because of a decision you made there. And all those things are awesome first steps, but they're just that, beginnings. There's more waiting for us than just showing up, and I'm convinced that more is found in sharing our lives with one another like we've seen throughout God's story today. I think the more we're looking for starts with the kind of life we see in that story from Acts that I shared with you a minute ago. Royals share life together, so if we want to experience royal life, we'll do a couple things. We'll learn together. We'll keep doing what we're doing right here, right now. That passage from Acts said they devoted themselves to the apostles' teachings. In other words, they met and they learned more about the way of Jesus together. That's like your groups. That's like church on Sunday. You show up with other royals in royal community to learn more about your God and the plans your God invites you into. It's important for us to show up to groups and to church because it's in these environments where we're challenged to take next steps on our journey with Jesus. It's where we're encouraged when we're struggling with the stuff life throws at us, and where we can turn when we have problems, questions, and opportunities that we're navigating. The next thing that we need to do is eat together. We should definitely share meals together. I think somebody sappy somewhere said that laughter is the shortest distance between two people, but I think they're wrong. I think food is the shortest distance between two people. One, because food is awesome, and two, because everybody has to eat. Sharing a meal can actually be a very holy experience. I mean, you see it in movies, right? Big important decisions and meetings take place over a meal. Promotions, celebrations, engagements, all those kinds of things often happen over meals because food is central to the human experience. And Jesus used meals time and again to bring people together. And when I say eat, I mean actually eat, but I think this can also mean just sharing the normal stuff of life with one another. Don't just spend time with your group at group. Find other ways and times to spend time with one another as you go throughout your weeks. Study together, hang out together, play video games together. Do the things you already do, just don't do them alone. And I think this last one is so important. we've got to sacrifice for one another. See, sacrifice looks different at different times. I hear that word and think about sacrificing my life, but I don't think many, if any of us, will find that we have to give up our lives for our friends. But sharing life will mean that there are things we'll have to give up. There will be times where we have to give up something we really want for something that someone else needs. There will be times as we share life together that we'll have to give up some of our pride, our popularity, and sometimes even our stuff. There will be times where we have to be vulnerable and honest with others when that's the last thing we want to do. But in those moments, we'll do it because royals share life together, and there's nothing better to give ourselves to than a community that draws us closer to Jesus. And I want to make a quick note here. This kind of community that we're talking about is rare in our world, regardless of our age. So when we find it, when we invest in it, and when we create it, we've got to share it. See, once we're comfortable doing the things and we have our core, then we shouldn't let it stop with us. Once we're sharing life with a good group, we should then invite others along. This order is important. If we want to be influencers rather than those who are influenced, then we must have a strong group behind us. Guys, this isn't some nice idea that I'm sharing with you just because it's in the Bible. It's something I've experienced personally. My life has been changed time and again when I've chosen the plural version of royalty. I was reminded of this in a very real way just a few weeks ago. See, a few weeks ago, I went to a fundraiser for some students that happened to be at the same high school I went to when I was their age. Before this fundraiser, I had some time to walk around my old high school and think about just how much life has changed for me since I was a student at school. Sure, I thought about some of the fun memories I made with my friends, but more than that, I thought about the ways that God has changed me for the better since the time I spent there. And at the core of all of that change was God, using a community of people who gave me an example to work toward, who helped me see the things I couldn't see in myself and to challenge me when I got distracted from the things that mattered most. My life was changed radically and is radically different now in awesome ways because of real community. Royals share life together, and my life is entirely different because of the friends, leaders, and mentors I chose to learn from, to do the normal stuff of life with, and to sacrifice things for. And friends, I want that same experience for you. I want you to experience life-altering, royalty-level change because you made the decision to share life with others. And so as we go to groups, I want you to think about the current community you have. And I want you to ask yourself, is this a group of people I'm learning alongside, sharing life with, and willing to sacrifice for? And I don't want you to think about what it should look like or could look like. I want you to think about it as it is. And if the answer is no, then I hope you'll keep coming back as we try to figure out what it looks like to be a group of royals together. Guys, God designed us for community. Royals choose to share life together, and I hope you'll choose community this year. And I believe that if you do, you'll experience the royal life God so desperately wants for you.